Hey, loves. Paula here with the Healed Love Languages. I'm your nurse, your health coach, and your truth-telling big sister. I want you to grab your water, your coffee, your tea, whatever it is that you're drinking today. Lemon lift, pomegranate, green tea, whatever it is. I want you to relax, unlock that jaw, and just listen in and heal. I have a new series I'm starting today called Behavioral Intelligence. We're going to stop romanticizing confusion, stop calling chaos chemistry, and start building relationships rooted in truth and health and emotional maturity. So let's begin this new series, Behavioral Intelligence. It's about learning how to read behavior instead of become emotionally hypnotized by words. Because boy, there are some charming people out there who will say almost anything to get what they want. They can say they love you. They can say they respect you. They can say they are changing. They are different from everyone else. They can say God sent them. Some of them will say God sent them while behaving like God forgot to perform a background check. And boy, have I met a few of those. It's exactly why we need discernment. Today's episode is called Stop Listening to What People Say. Behavior is the most honest language we speak. Now, I'm not saying words do not matter. Words do matter. Communication matters. Apologies matter. Promises matter. But words only become meaningful when behavior supports them. Otherwise, they are just sounds arranged attractively. And some people are extremely talented at arranging those sounds. And we are extremely talented into buying them. They will give you a TED talk about loyalty while betraying everyone around them. They can preach emotional maturity with the emotional regulation of a wet raccoon trapped in a pantry. They tell you they hate drama while personally producing, directing, editing, and starring in all 6 seasons. And this is why behavioral intelligence matters. Because when you learn to observe behavior, you stop needing to solve every mystery. And the behavior is already giving you the answer. Let's look at words that create hope. Behavior creates reality. We're going to begin with a simple question. If someone tells you they are honest, but they repeatedly lie, are they honest? No. If someone says they value communication, but disappears whenever a conversation becomes uncomfortable, do they truly value communication? No. If someone says they want a healthy relationship, but refuses accountability, consistency, vulnerability, or compromise, do they actually want a healthy relationship? Probably not. They may want the benefits of one. They may want the companionship. They may want the attention, the emotional support. They may want the physical affection. They may want someone available when they are lonely. But wanting the benefits of a relationship is not the same as possessing the character required to build one. That distinction is so important. And this is why we need to take our time, observe someone's behavior, and not just buy them at their word. Because many of us have spent years listening to what people said they wanted while ignoring what their behavior showed us they were capable of providing. They said they wanted commitment. Their behavior showed avoidance. They said they valued honesty. Their behavior showed secrecy. They said family mattered and their behavior showed neglect. They said they wanted peace, but their behavior created constant instability. And because we're listening to the words, we kept waiting for the behavior to catch up that potential because we believed what they said. And that waiting can cost you months, sometimes years, sometimes decades. Words create possibility. Behavior reveals the capacity. And a person may genuinely want to be healthy, but wanting to be healthy is not the same as doing the work required to become healthy. A person may genuinely want to love you well, but if they lack emotional regulation, accountability, honesty, empathy, and consistency, their desire alone will not protect you from the harm caused by their limitations. Intentions matter, but intentions do not cancel impact. You know, the Bible tells us to look for the fruit. And I use this in almost every podcast. So you're going to get so used to hearing it that it's just going to be ingrained, hopefully, in your brain and in your heart that you will start looking for the fruit. This is not just modern psychology, it is biblical. In Matthew 7:16, Jesus says, you will recognize them by their fruits. He did not say by their promises, by their charisma, by their charm, how intensely they pursue you during the first 2 weeks. You'll recognize them by their church attendance or by the Bible verse in the social media bio. He said you will know them by their fruits. Fruit is the visible result of what is growing inside someone. You don't want to pick the low-hanging fruit, and fruit takes time to observe. That means discernment requires patience. Love is patient. It is kind. It is not self-seeking. You cannot properly evaluate character while rushing intimacy. You can be in lust at first sight, but not love at first sight. You cannot properly observe patterns when you are already emotionally invested in the outcome. You cannot see clearly when you are determined to make someone fit the story you have already written in your head. And this is why slowing down matters. Slow is not punishment, slow is information. Time allows behavior to become visible at first. Nearly everyone is on their best behavior. Of course they are. Nobody shows up on the first date and says, "Hello, I avoid accountability, disappear under pressure, resent boundaries, and communicate primarily through passive aggression. Would you like dessert and a second date?" No. They present the polished version. They pretend, and honestly, we all do that to some degree. We wear the good outfit. We use the good manners. We refrain from telling the waiter our entire childhood history, hopefully. Sometimes I don't even do that. I'm too much of an open book. But the issue is not that people present themselves positively. The issue is whether their character remains consistent once comfort, disappointment, frustration, and inconvenience enter the relationship, because character is not revealed when everything is easy. Character is revealed when someone does not get what they want. They say you can always tell who a person is when you do not give them what they want. Watch how they act when you tell them no. Pressure reveals what presentation hides. Pay attention to people under pressure. Pay attention when you say no, when you disagree, or when you need something. Pay attention when they are inconvenienced or when you establish a boundary and you are no longer easy to impress, control, or please. That is when the polished version begins to crack. A person can appear kind when you are agreeing with. Are they still kind when you disagree? How do they disagree? A person can appear generous while receiving praise. Are they still generous when nobody is watching or they're not receiving praise? A person can appear patient during pursuit, but are they still patient once they feel secure in your attachment? A person can appear spiritual in public. They go to church on Sunday. Look at me, I go to church on Sunday. But how do they act the other 6 days of the week? Are they humble? Are they honest and compassionate in private? Luke 6:45 says, "Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks." Eventually, what is inside their heart comes out. Not always in one dramatic moment, often in small, repeated behaviors, the cutting joke, "I was just kidding," the subtle dismissal, "I was busy," the broken promise, whatever excuse comes up, the unexplained absence, the refusal to apologize, the refusal to change. The way they treat service workers is very important. The way they talk about their former partner. If every ex is a bitch or every ex is a jerk, then you know they are not taking any accountability and what they contributed to those relationships. The way they respond when someone else succeeds. Do they put them down and say they cheated to get there or they lied to get there, or do they celebrate with them? The way they punish you for having a boundary when you say no, or "I'm not going to have this conversation with you while you call me names." How do they act? That character leaks. You do not always need a confession. Sometimes the pattern is the confession, and just paying attention to how they act in those situations. Stop being impressed by basic adult language. Somebody sending you text messages is not somebody pursuing you. They are just talking to you out of loneliness and inconvenience. Some of us have been overly impressed by people knowing the correct words. They say, "I value communication." Man, that is lovely. We want them to value communication. Can you communicate when you're uncomfortable? They say, "I'm very self aware." Wonderful. Can you hear feedback without becoming defensive? Can you handle constructive criticism? If they say, "I believe in accountability." Beautiful. That's one of my favorites. Can you apologize without adding the phrases, "but you also," or "look what you did," or turn it back around on the other person, because the apology was doing fine until "but you also" arrived wearing muddy shoes and destroyed the entire living room? They say, "I have healed." Okay, what changed? What behaviors are different? "I went to the gym and I started eating healthy. I lost weight." No, you're not healed. You have learned to discipline yourself in your lifestyle, but you haven't healed your heart. How do you manage conflict now? What do you do when you feel rejected? How do you respond when someone tells you no? And these are questions you can also ask of yourself to see if you are even in a good place to be in a relationship with someone. But do not be impressed by someone knowing therapy language. Listen for the evidence. Watch for the actions. People can memorize healing vocabulary without practicing healing. They can say triggered, boundary, narcissist, trauma response, and attachment style while using every single term incorrectly and taking responsibility for absolutely nothing. Therapy language can become another form of image management. For example, I had to protect my peace. A lot of times, protecting their peace meant they didn't want to take accountability. Did you protect your peace or avoid a necessary conversation? Or they say things like, I'm still setting a boundary. Is it a boundary or a threat designed to control someone else? Are you setting a boundary because you don't want to take accountability? They say things like, I was triggered. That may be true, but being triggered explains a reaction. It does not excuse cruelty. You cannot be cruel because you were triggered. If they say things like, I'm an avoidant, that is not a hall pass to disappear for 9 business days and return with a meme and act like nothing ever happened. Language can explain behavior. Are they emotionally intelligent enough to have the conversations? I should not it should not be used to permanently excuse it. Patterns are more important than isolated moments in our dating lives and with our friendships, even with our coworkers. Behavioral intelligence does not mean judging someone by their mistakes, by one mistake. Everyone has bad days. Everyone says the wrong thing. Everyone becomes tired, overwhelmed, insecure, defensive, or emotionally clumsy sometimes. One poor reaction is not necessarily a character diagnosis, but repeated behavior is different when evaluating someone. Look at frequency. How often does this happen? Duration. How long has it been happening? You can also look at intensity. How severe is the behavior? And my number one favorite accountability, what happens after the harm? Do they hold themselves accountable and do they try to repair? Do they attempt to make things right? And then after all of that, do they change? Does the pattern actually improve? One mistake followed by sincere accountability and change behavior is human imperfection. Repeated harm, though, followed by excuses is a pattern that they are just manipulating you. One forgotten phone call is not abandonment. Consistent disappearance whenever emotional closeness increases may be avoidance. One defensive moment is not emotional immaturity. A complete inability to receive feedback without blame, rage, shutdown, or retaliation is a serious problem that you do not want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Context matters. Patterns matter more. You do not need to turn every flaw into a disorder either, but you also do not need to minimize a pattern simply because you cannot give it a clinical label. You don't have to label it anything. If patterns happen where you keep being hurt and they keep blowing it off, you're allowed to say this behavior is unhealthy for me. You do not need a diagnosis. You need discernment. We believe words over behavior too often. Why do intelligent people keep believing words when the behavior contradicts them? We're smart enough to know because words feed hope and we want hope, and hope can be addictive. Goes back to the whole gambling scenario that I talk about, that intermittent reinforcement. Hope can be addictive. Words allow us to remain attached to potential and fantasy. Behavior forces us to face reality, and reality may require grief. It may require letting go. It may require admitting that the person we believed in is not the person standing in front of us. And that hurts. Sometimes we're not confused. We're grieving the answer we keep asking. Do they love me? However, they keep showing us over and over that they don't even love themselves. So the deeper question may be, can they love me in a healthy, consistent, emotionally safe way? Those are not the same questions. Someone may feel love for you and still lack the character to maintain a healthy relationship with you. They are lacking the fruits. Feelings do not automatically create capability. This is difficult because many of us were taught that love conquers everything. Love is powerful, but love without honesty becomes denial. Love without accountability becomes enabling. Love without boundaries becomes self abandonment, and love without wisdom can keep you loyal to situations that are destroying you. As I always refer to this verse, I'm going to say it again. Y'all are going to be able to say this verse with me daily. Proverbs 4:23 tells us, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it, even the way you speak to yourself. So guarding your heart does not mean becoming cold and cutting it off and not being in a relationship. It means becoming wise about access. Everyone can be treated with dignity. Not everyone should be given intimacy. Everyone can receive kindness. Not everyone should receive trust. Everyone can be forgiven, but not everyone should be restored to the same position in your life. Access should be based on character, not pressure. Behavioral intelligence in real life, we're going to make it practical. Someone says, I care about your feelings. But whenever you express hurt, they dismiss you, they mock you, or become angry. Believe the pattern. Someone says, I want a future with you, but they avoid commitment, make no plans, and only engage when it is convenient after you've had the conversation with them. They're not trying to move the relationship forward. Believe the pattern. Someone says, you can trust me, but they hide information, change stories, and accuse you of insecurity for noticing inconsistencies. Notice that they don't bring forth the truth in those inconsistencies. and show that, yes, they were probably wrong. They did this and they did that, and they don't hold themselves accountable. Believe those patterns. If someone says, I am sorry, but the same behavior continues without meaningful effort to change it, believe that pattern. They are manipulating you. Another scenario, they might say, I respect your boundary, but then argues, pressures, pouts, withdraws affection, or punishes you for maintaining it. Doesn't speak to you for weeks, or writes you off completely and then shows back up 3 months later. Believe those patterns. This does not mean people cannot change. People can absolutely change. Real change becomes observable. It becomes measurable, just like losing weight and eating healthy. Real change does not require you to pretend. It does not demand immediate trust. It does not pressure you to forget the past before the present is different. Real change accepts consequences. It becomes consistent. It does not announce itself every Tuesday. It simply becomes visible. Throughout this whole entire podcast, one thing has been very consistent, that actions and words should agree. And the goal is not to ignore the words. The goal is alignment. Healthy people work to make their words and actions agree. They say they will call and they call. They say they made a mistake and they repair it. They say your feelings matter and they make space for them. They say they respect your boundaries and they do not punish you for having them. They say they are changing, and over time you can see the change. Healthy relationships are not built on perfect behavior. They are built on congruent behavior. And congruence means the inside and the outside match. The words match the actions. The public person resembles the private person. The apology is followed by repair. They go to church on Sunday and they worship God Monday through Saturday. It is a daily living in their life. The apology is followed by repair. The promise is followed by effort. That belief is followed by fruit. James 1:22 says, be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves, which means if you're deceiving yourself, you're going to deceive others. Do not merely talk about the values and your character. Actually live them. Live them so that they can be seen. Your weekly behavioral intelligence practice for this week. I'm going to give you some homework today. Choose one relationship. It can be romantic, professional, it can be family or a friend, and then ask yourself these questions. Question number 1, what does this person consistently say? Not one dramatic declaration. What do they repeatedly claim to value? Question number 2, what does this person consistently do? Look at their behavior without editing it. Do not add any excuses. Do not add potential. Do not add what they experienced in childhood. Just observe. And then question number 3 I want you to ask is, do the words and behavior align? That is where the truth usually is. Then ask the same questions about yourself, because you want to look within as much as you want to look on the outside. Behavioral intelligence is not only about reading other people, it is also about becoming honest about our own behavior. Do I say I want peace while repeatedly choosing drama? Do I say I value honesty while avoiding difficult truths? Do I say I want healthy love while continuing to pursue unavailable people? Do I say I have boundaries while abandoning them the moment someone becomes upset? Do my behavior support the life I say I want? That part may sting, but healing is not just learning how to identify unhealthy people. Healing is becoming someone who no longer participates in unhealthy patterns. And here's what I want you to remember from today's podcast. Words are invitations. Behavior is evidence. Promises can introduce possibility, and patterns reveal probability. Do not build your life on what someone repeatedly says they are going to become. Build your decisions around who they consistently demonstrate themselves to be. That does not mean you become suspicious of everyone. It means you become observant to determine discernment. It means you stop calling discernment negativity. Discernment is not negative. It is for your protection, to guard your heart. It means you stop giving unlimited access based on unlimited potential. It means you allow time, patterns, accountability, and consistency to reveal character, because the healthiest people do not require you to ignore reality in order to love them. They do not need you to become less intelligent, less observant, or less honest. And that is so important to remember. Healthy love can withstand examination. Healthy character is not offended by accountability, and healthy people are not perfect, but they are teachable. They are honest. They repair, they grow, they become safer over time, not more confusing. So this week, listen to the words, but watch the behavior, because behavior is one of the most honest languages we speak. And once you learn how to understand it, you stop falling in love with promises and start making decisions based on truth and light. Thank you for listening in today to the Healed Love Languages podcast. Follow the show so you do not miss episode 2 of the Behavioral Intelligence series. Character leaves clues what to watch during the first 30 days. Share this episode with someone who keeps trying to decode mixed signals. Mixed signals are usually not mixed. The words and behaviors simply do not match. And the behavior is usually telling the truth. Until next time, heal, choose better, and love better. And thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your character development and healing journey. Bye, loves.